All right, guys, so we're going to work on the show view of the job listing in this video, and it's mainly going to involve some stuff we've used before, some other stuff that we create offhand, like there's a job type filter, a helper, excuse me, and a job author filter. I keep saying filter, but it's a job author helper. And then since we add an admin field to our column, our users table, we can actually do a current user.try admin to show admin controls. So here I'm checking if it is an admin user who should be able to do anything or the actual person who posted it. So to continue on, I'm getting errors at this point because those things don't exist as helpers. So let's go and define those in our helpers. So in our helpers, under app helpers, job helper, I'm going to actually define these now. So I'm going to start with the job author because it's less of a burden to do. We're going to pass in the job itself. There we go. And we're going to check if the user signed in. And this comes from devise. But then we're going to check the current user. ID is equal to two equal signs, job.userid. So that one's taken care of. So we're just checking to make sure that user authored that job. Otherwise, they shouldn't be able to edit it. And then we need to define job type here. So this is going to be kind of useful in the aspect that we want to display a different tag style for each job type that comes through. So I'm going to go ahead and just change that a bit to just output a different content tag that's a span tag each time. So I'll check if the file job type is actually equal to a specific string. So it's going to be two equal signs full-time. So this is how I actually spelt it in that constant. So make sure it's the same way for you. If it isn't and it's misspelled, it will just ignore it and not work. So that's important. Then in Rails, you can create a content tag off the cuff. So it's pretty cool. You can just say content tag, call it a span, and then we can do interpolation with the job type itself that we're passing in. That's going to basically be what text comes out. So if it's going to be this job type, that text will end up being here. It's kind of neat. So the problem is I can't just pass in, I need the unique way to define what this is. Otherwise it'd be cool to just have like a one-liner, but in this case we're going to just kind of duplicate it for each different job type. So for each, we're just going to set a different class. One weird thing with Ruby is if you spell else if like that, it's wrong. You take out that E and it's right. No idea, but that's just the way it's written. So go with it. So we're going to do the same thing. Kind of just copy and paste. All right, so it's going to be link for part-time. Okay, so freelance will be warning. Contract will be info. So this is just stylistic. It's not like important that this happens, but it's kind of neat just to have, just so each job renders the way it should. Looks like I have one. Oh, I forgot an else. I need finally an else, and then we're just going to do an empty string and then end it after that. Boom. Okay, cool. So now we're getting the data back for each job. We only have one job at the moment, but we'll add more in a sec with some seeding of the database. So we can edit this job. You'll notice if we edit it, it's not able to charge again, and that's on purpose. That's actually what I was trying to explain on our payment form. If the job persisted to the database, don't show this because it doesn't make sense to charge the user again. They can't get past that paywall. So then we just have the form here in that case. So I need to update this. And we'll update it. Cool. So we updated that, and the logo links to my site. I have a link to my site, another link to my site. You can apply to this job, which is just a link you supply as the person who posts it. The title of the job, when it was posted, the type of job, where, and what kind, if it's a remote job. And then of course the description. And you can take this a step further and introduce like markdown into the picture if you want. We've done that in other series if you want to check that out, but I've kind of run out of time on this one, so it's not the greatest. But anyway, that's kind of the show view. Why don't we go ahead and do the index view and make that look pretty. I'll go ahead and save everything else. I'm going to actually get this from our demo and put that into play. And this one's really not much different. I don't know why it's in an empty file. Instead of a giant table that they give you by default in the scaffold, we're doing kind of the same thing here, only we're passing in our avatar stuff. So here's our, if an avatar doesn't exist or doesn't have the actual URL to the avatar, let's go ahead and output that. We're saying if it exists, excuse me. And then I actually have a partial called panel where we're going to actually do some filtering. That'll be the next part. But for now, I just want to have it just so this doesn't error out. So we've got that on the left side. It's going to be a sidebar. And on the right is going to be our loop, so to speak, for all the jobs that come through. So we've got our avatar. We've got our link to the job title and the title. We've got our author. And in this case, since we're looping through, we have this as a variable as opposed to the typical @job on the show page. And I also have admin controls if you're a author of this job and or if you're an admin user. So I'm an admin user at this moment because we set that in Rails console, and that's typically how it's done. You can, I think, define a method to do that with just like clicking a link too. I just haven't done that. But one thing you might notice is new is a sanitized filter. It's kind of neat in the sense that if you pass HTML out from a text area element, it's gonna render that HTML as just plain text. That's just Rails being smart, trying to make sure things aren't getting injected where they shouldn't. But you can tell Rails, hey, to sanitize that so no HTML is in the picture at all. And then we're getting our job description and truncating it to 200 and then putting in separators where needed, which is just a closing P tag, which is very cool. And then below we're using our job type helper and then getting our location. So all in all, that ends up looking like this, which is kind of crappy. We don't have our filters here, so it's not awesome looking yet, but it will be. And then there's a few things we need to do stylistically to get this to look, I think, like our current app. So I will go ahead and kind of get those things rolling, I think. So why don't we get our panel in the mode it needs to be. So let's go to our jobs, into that panel partial, and start there. And this is going to be where we get into filtering database stuff. So we'll actually create a nav.panel and p.text uppercase has text gray. I'm just using utility classes here, streamlines what I'm doing here. So you can filter by job type, and this is going to be in all caps in the end, so we can look and see. Of course it's not. Why isn't it? Oh, I know what I did wrong here. Okay, so in our application layout file, I modified that before we started, and in this one I didn't. So let me go back and fix that. Instead of just a container field in our application view, it's a container div, excuse me, right here. I want to get rid of these for this app. And that should make that jump up and go kind of full width. Cool. Yep, that's what we want. And let's make sure our functions is included in our style sheets. I thought it was. Functions, jobs. Okay, these need to be underscore. Oops, what's going on here? There we go. Rename those to have underscores. There we go. And we'll save that back. See if that makes any bit of difference. I don't know why it's not working there. I think I forgot to add some styles because I amended that functions file in our other project, so I should update that on the template. Maybe I'll do that. Or you guys can just kind of copy a few things here that are going to make a difference. There we go. Okay, so with that done, we can actually get down to the actual stuff here. Let's go back to that panel partial. There we go. We'll keep going. All right, contract here. So the string, like I said, it matters a great deal, so don't change it. You can edit it probably before it saves to the database, so it's all lowercase or something, but I just didn't do that in this case, so maybe that's a experiment for you to try. Okay, so that's basically the gist of this panel. Those are going to show up on the left, as you see here. And at the moment they don't do anything, but you'll notice if I click full-time, it passes this into the URL. So it's going to our jobs path and then doing a query for the job type of full-time, which is exactly what we're passing it. So that's being really smart and cool of Rails. The problem is we need to actually do something when that actually happens, and that all happens in our controller. So let's go ahead and go to our controller and modify it a bit. We're still in our jobs controller where we did all the stripe stuff earlier, but we want to go into our index path now and modify it. So let's go to that, and we're going to check basically if a param exists that matches this given type. So we're going to do params dot has key of that job type. So we're trying to make everything smart here. And then we're going to filter the jobs in that case by job, where we're basically doing SQL right now, but with Rails as a in-betweener person. And then we're passing in the params of job type, since that's what we're passing it. And then we can order that however we please, just like normal. So created at, since that's part of our database too, and then descending. So then we can do it else. We just render normally as all, and then do it in. So with that bit of code, we're going through and saying, say it's full-time. We're checking the param of the URL. If it has the key of full-time, which is what we're passing through, we're going to go into the job, find where that job type equals full-time, and then, of course, order all of those that come back as a descending fashion. Otherwise, if there's no parameter, which is going to be all jobs in this case, which is a button we have as well, it's going to do descending of all of them. Doesn't matter what order they're in. So if all goes right, that should already be ready to go. So this one's part-time. If we did full-time, that should go away. If we do part-time, it should show. All should be there. Freelance, it should go away. Contract shouldn't be there. Part-time, yep. Full-time, nope. All, yep. So to prove another theory, I guess at this point I can go ahead and do the seeding of the database. But you notice if I post a new job again while I'm at it, my last visit is showing that data since I'm a current user who has already paid for a job. So this is just kind of a cool, handy thing. And what I wanted to show you is kind of a nice to have. It's not required by any means, but you can do this for users just so they know, oh, I use my card on this one, or a business card, etc., rather than having to kind of just guess that they need to use a certain card. Just kind of a little handy thing. Okay, so with that done, let's go ahead and work on seeding the database. And I think that's going to be about it for this one. So when we do that, we'll have a lot more records to show. So I'll go ahead and exit out of this, go back to kind of a clean working directory here. Go to our database folder and seeds. And in the last series, I did this as well. What you can do is basically propagate your database with data to begin with, as opposed to just having to do it all by hand. So I'm not going to go ahead and type all this out because it would take forever, but I am going to copy and paste what I had in my demo file in, which I did type out at the time, minus this lorem ipsum stuff. But it's just basically the contents of the database stuff that we authored on our job model. So we've got our title, description, URL, the apply URL, job type, location, and all this is going to just vary based on what data you want to pass through. One thing I need to add still though are images, and that's what this is pointing to here. This Rails root join, look for images that have this name, and you'll notice that each is different. So on my desktop I actually have those. I'm going to add to this path. So I'm going to create a new tab here, go to my desktop, grab these images, copy them, go in my assets, images, and paste it. Okay, so they're in our actual project directory now. And we should be able to run the seeding process now. Well, to do this though, you need to drop your current database. So word to the wise that is going to destroy everything in there, and that's okay. It's kind of the point of doing this locally. Don't do this live though. So let's do Rails DB do it command. We're going to look for Rails. It should show some more here in a second. DB, I guess DB drop is what we're after. It's going to delete our test and development databases. Okay, so we want to actually do Rails DB create now. Now when you do that, your database is completely fresh. There's no actual content inside of it. So we still need to run Rails DB migrate to do that. And basically add all those records and columns to it. You see all of our migrations we've had are in the picture now. And then we can do Rails DB seed finally. And if all goes right, you shouldn't got any errors. And if that's the case, if you do find an error, it should tell you what's up. But now when we restart the app, you're gonna lose the account you may have already created. And that the reason being is because we dropped the database. So here we're creating a new user, and you could pass in your own information here, but this is just placeholder for now. But this is stuff I use just to give me a user that is assigned to all these jobs. So if I refresh this, we should see quite a few jobs. Cool. So we got Rails engineer, platform engineer, WordPress, Trello, Slack, cool companies. Notice all the different types here and their different colors. That's our helper being very friendly and helpful. And then we can, of course, filter this, and you'll notice the parameters in the URL doing its thing. So we got part-time, full-time, freelance, contract, all. You can post a job, you're going to be asked to sign in. So I have my old at webcrunch email won't exist at this point. So we need to actually use the example one. And I'll log in. And then we should be able to do the post. I'll do writer. One thing I didn't really pay attention to much in this series is validation in your model. So you'll want to actually do those for each form field. They're required on the front end, but that doesn't get you all the way secure. So do both front and server side. Server side is going to involve doing like validates stuff in your model. So like we've got a title, so you would put at least validates title, and then like presence, if I can spell it right, true, something like that, for all the fields that you want to require before data gets actually sent. But I'm not going to worry about that in this one, just for time's sake. Submit, and we have our job posting. It redirects to it, which is great. And it's a freelance position. Everything's kind of coming through. We've got our controls since I authored this one. If I go ahead and create a new account, you'll notice I created this one in that other account, but I can't edit it with this one. That's on purpose because I'm not the author. If I wanted to, though, say I want to set myself as an admin, I could just do Rails console, and then I'll do user equals user.last, since that was the last one to sign up. It was my webcrunch email. You notice admin set to nil, so we could just say user.admin equals let's see, it's a boolean, so will be true, and then user.save. And then if you go back to your app, you should see a bunch of controls come to view, which is great. So I have admin capabilities now. I can edit and view and remove any job. The view is kind of really doesn't need to be there, but edit and delete, of course, would be cool. And then going into a job, we can do this. I just loaded the blog by mistake, but it's all right. Speaking of, go check out my blog, guys. I've got books and stuff. Other series, you should check them out if you like. It's funny, I used to write a lot more, but then I got into video, and now it's just like all I do. But I enjoy both. Anyway, back to the app. We've got our job board. I think that's about it. So if I were to post a job now, I'm a new user, so I would have to do this. But Stripe's working. We just got our new post in. This should go and grow one. Yep, so the new one there. So we got payments. This would be all under payments at 10:08. Yeah, I'm recording kind of late, so sorry. But yeah, so that's kind of cool. It's working. It's $300. From here, Stripe does the rest. Of course, it charges you its awesome fees. In the end, make this send emails to your customers. You can refund stuff, or you can even do event-based stuff from your app that does this automatically. So that's the beauty of it. You could scale it to be very automatic and like almost robotic, which is cool. So guys, that's it. This is a job board with payment processing. It was our first app that used payment processing, which is through Stripe. I don't know that I'll touch anything to do with PayPal because I've heard horror stories, but I would say if you're into wanting to accept payments but want to use Rails and Stripe, it's probably the quickest and easiest way to go about it. Even though that JavaScript and stuff kind of seem complicated, it gets easier, because when I first initially tried it myself, it was so hard to wrap my head around, but I finally found a way. But definitely do that. Also check out my template for the kickoff. If you're going to follow along, definitely use that. It'll save you a ton of time. Otherwise, if you want to do it by hand, check out my previous series. You can find all my series on my site under series. It's nothing pretty, but it's just a list of everything I've done so far, so you can see all the videos and stuff I've done. If you feel free to subscribe, it would be great if you could, just kind of get my actual newsletter intact if you want to get automatic updates and stuff like that. So anyway, I will see you in the very next video, whatever that may be. I actually just had a kid, so my new son Lex is in the picture now, so time is of the essence. So hopefully I can continue to do this. But as always, if you can support me liking the channel or subscribing, that'd be awesome. I do have a Patreon page now, up to you if you want to help out there. There's also a link to just buy me a coffee to keep me going, because I'm doing this stuff kind of for free, but also for myself. So there might be opportunities in the future to do more premium based stuff. I'm also going to start exploring more languages like JavaScript for sure. So I will see you in the next one. Peace.